Welcome to the 2017-18 Site Supervisor Training. I'm Amy Potthast, the Director of Programs, and I'm joined here with Rebecca and Carolyn, and they'll introduce themselves momentarily. So welcome, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining this webinar to ensure that we're all compliant together to make this coming year a success. And we want to give a special shout out to new site supervisors who are joining us for the first time, and another special shout out to our returning site supervisors. Thank you. And I can help you in a second when I turn over the webinar to the other folks. Okay, if you have any questions during this presentation, use that chat screen down in the bottom right of your screen to ask questions. And I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to Rebecca and Carolyn, and then I'll be staffing the chat box personally. So just ask any questions that you have there.
Hi, this is Carolyn Chu. I'm the JV Program Manager here at JV's Northwest. Here's the outline for this orientation. So we're going to go over staff contacts, important dates, the JV AmeriCorps member benefits and responsibilities, and the responsibilities and role of the site supervisor, prohibited activities, and position descriptions and unallowable activities, communication between JV's Northwest and our partner agencies, performance measurement, and then we'll have a send-off, time for questions, and a word of thanks. So here are some of our staff contacts. So Rebecca, who is on this webinar, is our AmeriCorps Program Manager, and Carrie is the AmeriCorps Program Assistant. So they are your primary contacts for AmeriCorps-related questions. I'm Carolyn, again, the JV Program Manager. Cindy Shantz is our Program and Communications Assistant, who will handle a lot of your placement agreement or certificate of liability insurance questions. Amy Potthast is our Director of Programs. And then Jean Haster is our Executive Director, and she is currently on sabbatical for the 2017-18 year, the start of it, until September. And then program coordinators are your main contacts here at the office. And so we have a few new names, a couple who are actually starting today. So for Alaska, the new program coordinator is Maggie Ayau. So she will be working with the Anchorage, Bethel, Juneau, and Sitka JVs. Returning to Big Sky, Ashland, Billings, Hayes, Missoula, and St. Xavier, Montana is Sarah McKay. Replacing Irene is Elena Weber to work with the Portland, Grays Harbor, and Woodburn communities. Jessica Bridges will be returning to work with the Hillsborough, Seattle, and Tacoma communities. Greg Willett is returning to the Boise, Omak, and Spokane communities. And a new program coordinator named Kyler Liu will be working with the Gresham, Hood River, Yakima, and Wenatchee communities. So an overview of important dates for the year. So the biggest one that's coming up soon is July 14th, and that is when your placement agreement, site supervisor contract, and certificate of liability insurance are due. So if you haven't already, if you have a placed JV for the 2017-18 year, you will soon be receiving the placement agreement contract and request for the certificate of liability via email from your program coordinator. Our all program orientation is August 7th through the 12th, and that is in Molalla, Oregon. And so it's our first gathering of all 160 JV AmeriCorps members. The first day of service for our JVs is Wednesday, August 16th. Please be in contact with your JVs ahead of time about where they need to go on August 16th and also dress code. In September and October, there will be a fall area visit with the program coordinators, and you'll be notified that via email weeks before their visit. And the first retreat in the fall is November 2nd through the 5th. So it's just a reminder that JV AmeriCorps members have the days off to travel. And so for the Montana communities, it is a Thursday through Sunday for that weekend. And for all other communities, it's the Friday to Monday that they have off. And then a heads up that the application deadline for the 2018-19 year is due November 27th, the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Okay, good morning everyone. This is Rebecca and I'm going to start out by talking about some of the member responsibilities for the upcoming year. So first and foremost, they are required to serve 1,700 hours of service for the AmeriCorps member to receive their full education award. And while some might finish those hours prior to the end of the service contract, we ask each of them to stay the full duration of their service contract because they are committing to the agency and also to their community. We also ask them to participate in National Days of Service, and all of these are outlined in the paperwork that's provided. As Carolyn mentioned, there's also JVC Northwest retreats, and member responsibility is to also participate in these. Each member will receive a specific position description, thanks to many of you who helped work through these with us, as well as their member contract. And so all these duties outlined in these documents, the members also needs to take responsibility in. So AmeriCorps requires to share the impact of the AmeriCorps members, and we do this through performance measure reporting. So I will be talking more about this later in the PowerPoint, but that includes capacity building, health, and education. So the member benefits is the next section. First and foremost, they do receive a living allowance and an education award after completion of their full service year. Each JV AmeriCorps member also receives 10 days of leave from service. This, of course, is not counted towards the 1,700 hours of service. And then any other legally required leave, and you should follow your organization's leave policy. So more benefits of the member would be they are going to receive training from us at orientation and also from each of you when they're at their sites. The retreats they're going to participate in as a benefit. And then there's going to be benefits participating in networking and gatherings and trainings through AmeriCorps within the states and sometimes nationally as well. And we'll keep you up to date about these opportunities. They're also part of a larger alumni network called AmeriCorps Alums, which provides professional development and many other opportunities for them. So JVC Northwest offers health coverage for members. They can participate in the health coverage we offer, or they can participate in another. It's kind of at their will after discussing it with their family. So it is a benefit of the program. And then we also do have workers' compensation. JVC Northwest covers all JV AmeriCorps members, and we really rely on each of you. Please notify us immediately in the event of an injury at your service site. This is really important. I know that each of you are involved in a lot of work day in and day out, but please make sure you notify us about these types of situations. Okay, Carolyn's going to talk about the role of the site supervisor.
So first and foremost, the role and expectations that we have for site supervisors is to mentor and supervise the JV AmeriCorps members. So that includes an orientation when they arrive at your service site, and to make sure that they are aware of the policies and responsibilities that are expected of them. We also very strongly encourage and expect that the site supervisors are meeting weekly with the members so that there's a space to provide direction and feedback and debrief. Additionally, we ask site supervisors to uphold the member contract, so that means compliance with all of the terms. It also covers that JVs are serving their full service dates, that they are not engaged in prohibited activities, and that both the site supervisor and the JVs are following the position description. We also very strongly ask and request and expect that site supervisors are completing their paperwork on time. Another important piece is for site supervisors to approve the monthly timesheets on our AmeriCorps timesheet system. And so members will be submitting timesheets by the 5th of each month, and supervisors will approve them by the 10th. So twice a year, we ask for an organizational assessment, so that would be October and May. And we also ask for assistance with data collection and support in submitting performance measurements for each JV. So more specifically, in addition to the weekly meeting that you have with JVs, we have two specific JV AmeriCorps member performance evaluations. So that is the mid-year evaluation that is in February, and then the year-end evaluation as well. And we will provide the paperwork and the instructions for that when those are coming closer to be due. And then in the winter, during area visits, when the PCs, the program coordinators are out in your locales, there are mandatory meetings. So first, this webinar is part of one of our mandatory meetings. And then additionally, in the fall, when the program coordinator is out visiting, there is a meeting with you and the program coordinator, followed by a meeting with you, the program coordinator, and the JV to check in towards the beginning of the year to make sure everything is going well. And then in the winter, which is usually in January, early February, there's a group visit in which we gather all of the site supervisors in the locale to meet and go over updates with the program.
Okay, so we're now going to talk about prohibited activities. As many of you know, we're funded by AmeriCorps, which is under CNCS, a federal agency, so it's very important that we all understand the prohibited activities. And while this is a lengthy list, please note that all of these resources will be available to you throughout the year, and I'm also available if any questions arise. Okay, so all these are included in what they call the Code of Federal Regulations. And the prohibited activities we're going to discuss apply not only to the JV AmeriCorps member, but to also staff that are working directly to them within the AmeriCorps service, the JV AmeriCorps members, as well as any volunteers that JV AmeriCorps members may recruit or manage. Okay, so all of this information is online and also will be very much in your partner agency handbook and the site supervisor handbook, all outlined for you, okay? And before we dive into these prohibited activities, it's always important to understand that, of course, the members as individuals may exercise their rights as private citizens to engage. And we feel it is very important for them to engage as citizens, but it must be on non-AmeriCorps time, using non-corporation funds, and not wearing AmeriCorps logo. So when we're talking about prohibited activities now, we're talking about what cannot occur during their service hours. Okay, so we're going to start out with an obvious one here. AmeriCorps members obviously cannot engage in attempt to influence any type of legislation. They cannot organize or engage in any type of protest, petition, boycotts, or strikes. AmeriCorps members cannot assist, promote, or deter union organizing. AmeriCorps members cannot impair existing contracts for services or collective bargaining agreements. Of course, members cannot engage in partisan political activities. This is very important. Or any other activities designated to influence the outcome of any election to any public office. AmeriCorps members cannot participate or endorse events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, platforms, candidates, legislation, or elected officials. Another prohibited activity is related to religious instructions. AmeriCorps members may not engage in religious instruction or worship services. They can also not provide instruction as part of a program that includes mandatory religious instruction or worship. And then as well as the last couple refer to also engaging in construction to operate facilities. And lastly, they cannot engage in any form of religious proselytation. So AmeriCorps members also cannot provide direct benefit to a business or a labor union or a partisan political organization. They can also not provide a direct benefit to a nonprofit organization that fails to comply with restrictions, except that nothing in this section can be construed to prevent participants from engaging in advocacy activities. So AmeriCorps members also cannot provide a direct benefit to an organization engaged in religious activities described in the paragraph G of this section, unless the corporation assistance is not used to support those religious activities. Of course, a member cannot conduct a voter registration drive or use the corporation funds to conduct a voter registration drive. Members cannot provide abortion services or referrals for receipt of such services. And AmeriCorps members cannot do other activities as the corporation may prohibit. At times, new prohibited activities might surface, and so we'll definitely keep you up to date on these as they may arise. Okay, I know this is a lengthy list, but I think for some of you who have federal funding through other parts of your organization also are aware of these. They're pretty straightforward, just to ensure that, again, we're talking about service hours. But members can, of course, engage with private citizens as they so choose, but it must be on non-AmeriCorps time, using non-corporation funds, and not wearing AmeriCorps logos. It's very, very important just to keep all of this in mind throughout the service year. Okay, Carolyn's going to talk about unallowable activities.
All right, to continue the list of things that are prohibited of our JV AmeriCorps members. So first, JVs should not be displacing a paid staff position. Additionally, we need the JVs to have unique roles within the organization, so not duplicating a staff role. So they must be adding capacity in a very unique role at your organization. And then we also ask and require that when staff are absent, that the JV is not substituting for absent staff. So this also refers to just covering a shift, like covering a desk shift if someone is out. Additionally, JVs should not be money handling. And then we also request that they are not participating in clerical or administrative roles unless it is directly supporting their program activities, but specifically not an administrative assistant role or strictly filing for their role. So also JVs should not be fundraising for their organizations or writing grants of any sort. And there is an exception for limited in-kind donations. So we're going to talk a little bit about disability inclusion. So JVC Northwest is committed to non-discrimination in the selection of our JV AmeriCorps members, and we want to ensure that everyone has the accommodations to be successful at their placements. So we are asking you all as our partners to join us in supporting all of our JV AmeriCorps members of all abilities. And so if you have any questions around requests for accommodations that JVs make, please feel free to reach out to us and to work things out, because we want everyone to have a successful year. So we have a list of resources here for you all to access. And so the first one here is JAN, the Job Accommodation Network. And so they have a phone line and email support, and we've also included their website here. Additionally, the National Service Inclusion Resources has information specific to AmeriCorps members. And then EARN, the Employer Assistance and Resource Network on Disability Inclusion. So it's a resource for employees seeking to proactively recruit, hire, retain, and advance people with disabilities. And so there's free access to trainings and webinars and publications.
Okay, now we're going to move on to some communication items. So please check email from JVC Northwest to make sure it's on your safe list and doesn't go into your spam. You'll be receiving many emails from various people throughout the year. It's really important that you can communicate to us when site supervisors change, a position description, schedule, or service location would change, organizational changes are occurring in your agency that are impacting the JV. And of course, if a JV member is injured at their service site. Okay, so just try to be as proactive as you can when any changes occur. We do have a partner agency webpage, which last year we tried to really create a lot more accessibility to each of you. Anything you'd ever need throughout the year for resources should be on this page. So please use it and let us know if there's any feedback where we could provide more information to you. And these are some of the items that are on the web page, and all of these are going to be updated by the middle of July for each of you. We also have the timesheet instructions as well as performance measurement information on the partner agency web page. And through some suggestions of some of you, we do also have a link to a Google Calendar with deadlines and important dates. So if this is helpful for you, please utilize this. And if not, of course, you can use your own mechanism to track all the deadlines throughout the year. So identity. Identity is very important, not only to talk about the impact in the community for your agency, but also how AmeriCorps makes that happen. So JV AmeriCorps members should wear their logo, AmeriCorps logo and gear every day. It could be their gear, it could be their button, but it's always really important for people to visualize what's going on through the logos. We also have the Serving Here poster at service sites with the AmeriCorps logo, which we ask each of you to have in a visual location at your agency. Identity also is important for the National Days of Service. This last year was also very important, engaging in many days of service, many discussions throughout different communities. And so we will let you know about opportunities in the different 5 states we currently have members in of what opportunities exist throughout the year. There's also opportunities throughout the year for members to collaborate with the state commissions and other AmeriCorps members in the community. So we, again, will also communicate as these may arise. And then please refer to our JVs as Jesuit Volunteer AmeriCorps members in publicity. And this ensures that we both understand that they're Jesuit volunteers, but they're also AmeriCorps members. Okay, and then now we have a paperwork schedule coming up, and I know that Carolyn talked about some of this, but the site supervisor contract, placement agreement, and certificate of liability insurance is due July 14th. At the end of the placement agreement, I think you're also going to see a memorandum of understanding, so that is also due July 14th. Monthly timesheets are going to be due. Performance measurements are also going to be due on an ongoing basis, which I'll be talking about in a moment. And the initial placement assessment will be due in the fall. And then as we go throughout the rest of the year, of course, the midterm evaluation will be due in February, and the end evaluation will be due in July. And we also do send out a year-end survey, which we ask members and all of you to participate in. So timesheets on Encore, it's a pretty easy system, and it's an electronic system for those of you who might be new to this, but we'll be sending these after the JVs are at orientation, and we will send you instructions on how to go about approving these each month. And please take time to review these hours after the completion of the service. You cannot approve hours prior to the end of the month. Members cannot serve more than 18 hours in one day. And please take time to review the hours carefully. Do not record on the timesheet any hours that they're not engaged in service. So usually JVs know they should not be tracking vacation, sick leave, lunch breaks, comp time. It's only service hours. Okay, so performance measures. So the primary measure that most of the JVs are aligned with is capacity building, and they're required to do 2 capacity building projects throughout the year. We provide member training at orientation, and then for capacity building agencies, we require a pre and post organizational assessment, which contributes to the CNCS required evaluation. And Ella will be talking about that in just one moment. We also have members who are considered education or health performance measures. And so this would be submitting student academic support and patient tracking on a monthly basis. And then for education, they also required to do a pre and post student baseline assessment. Of course, we will be training the members at orientation as well. But if you need any further support from me throughout the year as a supervisor, please surely reach out as needed. Okay, so the organizational assessment is only for capacity building members and organizations. And you'll need to complete a pre and post organizational assessment for nonprofit agencies. It's a pretty simple, straightforward organizational assessment. And this is a requirement of part of the condition of funding from CNCS, which directly supports our AmeriCorps program. So you will be receiving 2 requests throughout the year, one in the fall and one in the spring. Just to let you know, it's really helpful to identify areas in which the JV AmeriCorps member may make meaningful and lasting contributions for their capacity building project. And more importantly, it's also the primary instrument to evaluate JVC Northwest AmeriCorps program. It's used to really ascertain whether the members' capacity building activities contribute to meeting the organizational needs. And so data will be used then to examine to the extent the organizations are able to make progress in the areas that are delineated in the assessment. Okay, and this last year was the first year we did the organizational assessment. We're required to do it 3 consecutive years in a row, so we really thank you in advance for your willingness to comply with this requirement. It's really greatly appreciated by each of you. As some of you might have questions, I just wanted to update you on the AmeriCorps budget process. The continuation resolution, which was recently passed this spring, does fund the upcoming service year of 17-18. But currently the FY18 federal budget process is underway, which will determine funding for 18-19 service year. Okay, so I think many of you know AmeriCorps has thrived under both Republican and Democratic administrations for more than 2 decades, and we know that there's a lot of support, and yet it's very important now more than ever to share the AmeriCorps story. Okay, so I know you've received several emails from us. And if there's any ways that you can engage to really share the importance of AmeriCorps, we really ask you to engage as you can. Okay, and Carolyn has some sending off and next steps for you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So a little bit more of a focus on the next steps, next things that we need from you. So please review the Partner Agency and Site Supervisor Handbook. Again, if you have a placed JV for the next service year, these have already been emailed to you or will be emailed to you this week. It's also going to be available on our website. And then again, another reminder, a third reminder to please sign, date, and return the Site Supervisor contract by July 14th. No matter what, we need this document prior to orientation so that we can get the JV AmeriCorps members enrolled and have them start gaining hours for their service year. So we will need 1 site supervisor contract per JV AmeriCorps member. And then if the site supervisor is to change in the year, we need a new contract immediately from that site supervisor on the first day that they start supervising the JV. And then the placement agreement is also due July 14th, and that is all attached to the site supervisor contract. So again, we need 1 per JV AmeriCorps member. And again, if you've not received this already, you will receive it soon, especially if you have a placed JV this upcoming year. And as Rebecca mentioned earlier, it also has an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding for the 17-18 year, and requests some other information along with that. So we need it signed and dated by July 14th. And then also with that is the Certificate of Liability Insurance. And so this is 1 per organization. So unlike the past 2 things that I mentioned, we only need 1 per organization and not per JV. So make sure that it includes your organization's name and program names and that those are covered on the certificate. We also must have an unexpired Certificate of Liability Insurance on file at all times. And please include us in the recipients list when you receive a new certificate annually when it expires and you get a new one. And again, here's that site supervisor webpage. Please utilize it and please give us feedback if there's something that you want to see on that webpage. We want to make it useful for you. So it should be able to support you throughout the year, and you should be able to access forms on this webpage throughout the year, and just let us know if you have any questions using this webpage. So at this point, we want to welcome your questions. If there is a question that is particular to your agency, please feel free to contact us after this webinar. Our phone number is on the screen, and our website, our email addresses are located here. This webinar is also this recording of the webinar will also be available on our site supervisor website. And so if you wanted to access any of those links from earlier slides or to reference this webinar later, you can make sure to go on our website and find it there.
Yeah, so I think if you notice, Amy has just shared that if you do have any questions, you can share your questions in the chat box feature on the bottom right. And as anyone might be doing this for any general questions, we also want to just thank each of you for your continued support to the JVs and for being with us today. I know all of you have a busy schedule, and we're just so grateful for your engagement with JBC Northwest.